All right, back to the Bhagavad Gita. All right. Last time I was talking about chapter 5 in the Bhagavad Gita, and I finished verse 23, and I would like to continue with verse 24 and share some of the info with you. The Bhagavad Gita, I just want to remind all of you, is actually an extremely important text. It is a text, it is a sacred text. All Indians consider it sacred text. And it is indeed a very unique teaching where we have, I remind you, the famous Krishna, the avatar, the great guru, the master, the supreme yogi, who is giving a teaching to his disciple Arjuna. And Arjuna is asking questions, Krishna is answering. And the truth is that as much as it is very well known, this text, and as much as we have so many different translations and variations of this text, the reality is that actually still, even today, I would say, a lot of people don't fully get the secrets that are revealed in the Bhagavad Gita. It requires some experience in yoga, some experience generally in spirituality for people to be able to really comment on it and to reveal some of these things. I hope I can do it with you. Anyway, that's the plan. And it is a very, very unique teaching, the Bhagavad Gita. That's why it's one of my favorite. And there we are. That's why we're here. And I'm reading to remind you from this text, which is called Bhagavad Gita, the scripture of mankind. So this is one version that I prefer, but there's quite a few others out there which are pretty good. So I'm carrying on now from verse 24, chapter 5. Let's read first. To one of the above description, the ladle with which the offering is made and the oblations are Brahman, and the sacrificial fire, which is Brahman, is performed by the sacrificer, who is Brahman, in the fire which too is Brahman. He who is thus absorbed in work as Brahman attains to Brahman alone. Well, I hope this was clear. Actually, it's a very confusing sentence, so let me clarify it. This is a sentence that actually points to monism, the spiritual teaching which actually is extremely advanced and elevated. This is what we teach in Kashmiri Shaivism. And the idea is, people keep saying we are all one and everything is the same and we are all, the divine consciousness. These are very sweet way of talking. And indeed, a lot of people, are easily understanding it, at least intellectually, mentally. But the problem is that these statements are easy to repeat with words, but to truly, truly comprehend and to become that is a whole different story altogether. That is where enlightenment comes in. And that's why what he describes here is actually a state of complete enlightenment. He's describing a puja. And he says that when he looks about the description above, what was the description above? I'll get back right now to verse 23 that we were discussing previously in the previous talk. And it says, in the case of the one who is without attachments and the sense of agency, and whose mind is fully established in the knowledge of God, his actions, being done in dedication to the Lord, melt away with their very tendencies. So he describes it first intellectually in verse 23. He says, when a person is able to truly be established, the mind is truly established in the knowledge of God, not just God, but the knowledge of God, then all the actions that a person of such caliber does become basically karma free. It's like you are acting in this world, but you produce no reactions, which is incredible. And then to explain it from a metaphysical kind of point of view, he describes it as a puja. Basically, what is a puja in India? A lot of people probably know. Usually it involves a fire ceremony where you light some fire in a special way, and then there is a pouring of ghee and pouring of all kinds of herbs and all kinds of oils and other things into the fire. And by doing that, sometimes it is done not just with the fire, but depends. There are pujas which are done for statues, but the classic one is with fire. And this fiery puja, the idea is that by offering these kind of valuable items, because all of them are very rich with energy, this ghee and whatever, butter and milk and whatever you pour in there, it's rich with energy, and it's like you offer it to the divine by using the fire. So when you throw something like herbs, and there are all kinds of scented herbs and incense and whatever, as you throw it in the fire serves as a kind of separator. It takes away the material part, burns it chemically, but the subtle part is lifted up, and because you do a puja with the intention towards a deity or something, the subtle energy goes there, and you are offering the essence to the divine. And that's the act of puja. And what he says here in this verse, he actually says that this is how your whole life should be. Of course, with your physical body, you interact with the world, you do many actions, you are active, and you do things. In other words, you create ripples in reality. But if you understand the truth, if you do it like a puja, everything should be like a puja, then it becomes an extremely advanced spiritual practice. Because then you realize who is offering what to whom. After all, this is all an illusion. And it is Brahman taking Brahman, offering it to the fire of Brahman, which eventually brings the energy to Brahman, and the whole thing is Brahman interplaying with himself. The divine interplays with the divine. When you have listened to this, if you fully understand that, not intellectually but existentially, then what kind of karma can you produce? Actually, karma becomes a misguided information. Suddenly, it is not something that you need to worry about, because what is karma? Karma is also Brahman. Brahman is making an action which is actually Brahman, produces a reaction which is Brahman, and basically it's all Brahman. If you are in that state, there is no action that you can do that will produce karma. You become divine. So that's why this sentence might seem simple, but it actually presents an opening to something extremely elevated, metaphysical, and funny enough, even practical, but we'll discuss that another time perhaps. I'll continue reading here. Some yogis perform sacrifices, especially wanting to propitiate deities, in other words, to satisfy deities. Still others offer sacrifice itself as an oblation, as a yajna, as a puja basically, in the fire of Brahman. So in other words, they offer sacrifice itself as the gift to the divine. The sacrifice is the gift for some. Not the fruits, but the sacrifice itself. Some offer their organs of knowledge, like hearing, as sacrifice in the fire of restraint. So you see, puja can be a much more complex thing. Even when, for example, he says here, if some yogi decides to be very strict and develop a discipline where you ignore one of your senses, like you refuse to look anymore or to hear anymore because you are beyond the senses and you want to go as high as that, then it says here that in itself is like a puja. It's like a sacrifice, because you sacrifice one of your organs, sense organs, to the divine. And he says that is also possible in the fire. The fire here is your discipline, the restraint that you do. While others take in all their sense perceptions, taking in all the sense perceptions as oblations made into the fire of their respective senses. This is a bit of a confusing here concept because they're talking about the sensory organs and the sensory subtle organs, we can say. And that's why they say some yogis, they take on the data that they perceive by the senses, but they don't allow it to enter their mind and influence them. But this data, so to speak, the input from the senses, they sacrifice it to the senses, or basically to the divine in that respect, what is meant here. Others offer all the functions of their senses and vital energy as sacrificial offerings in the fire of self-restraint kindled by knowledge. It's very similar. There are different variations of this, but this is a similar one to what I described. Likewise, other yogis, being of rigid vows and hard practice, offer their wealth, their money, their wealth, whatever, their austerities, their yogic practices, and their daily study of the Vedas as sacrifice. So you can see almost anything can be offered to the divine this way, and they say some yogis do that. They offer any of those that I just mentioned. Others, devoted to the practice of pranayama, regulate the movements of prana and apana, I'll get to that in a second, and offer as oblation prana in apana, and likewise apana in prana. Tell me, isn't that confusing? For a lot of people, especially if you're not initiated in yoga, it sounds very confusing. Apana, prana, what the heck is going on? Let me clarify. The idea is simple. They say that some yogis who perform pranayama. Pranayama is this technique, there are many techniques actually of pranayama, where the yogi learns how to control the life force in the body, the prana. And this is done by various methods. I don't want to go into it right now, but one of them is by using breathing techniques. It's more than that, but let's keep it simple, especially for those of you who have no experience with this. And then they say they regulate, these yogis, the apana and the prana. What is that? Actually, there are 5 different types. There are 10 to be more exact, but 5 which are relevant here. Different types of subtle energy in the body. And those different ones have different names. One of them is called prana, one of them is called apana, and then there's samana, udana, vyana. The names don't matter right now. But the point is that in yoga, it is very well known, in Kundalini yoga and in yoga generally, that when a yogi is doing pranayama properly, then he will notice that he can take those 2 types of energy or prana. One is called prana and one is called apana. I don't want to go too much into details how they work in the body, but they have specific functions. Those of you who did with me some of our courses, you probably remember it. And in yoga, when you do pranayama, you can learn to identify the 2 types of prana and apana, and mix them together. Either you mix one with the other or the other with the first. And by doing this kind of mix, it can generate kundalini effects, it can generate all kinds of powerful effects. There are many powerful effects that it can create. This is one of the secrets behind pranayama that, of course, in modern times most people don't know, because in modern times yoga is, what can I say, gymnastics. Most people think yoga is, and even those who actually teach a little bit of pranayama these days in various countries, even in India, there's yoga schools and so on, they usually concentrate on something very pathetic. They say that pranayama is like breathing gymnastics. Breathe to the left, breathe to the right, you'll get more oxygen, you feel more refreshed. That's what it's all about. You ask them, but do you know about prana, apana, how to use these things? They say, oh, this is nonsense. This is because they don't know. That's the real secret. Just doing a lot of breathing, hyperventilation, fire breath, whatever, without knowing the subtle structure of the life force and how to use it when you do pranayama, it's not really going to do much good for you. It'll be superficial practice. Now he says that some yogis who do this pranayama practice, mixing those elements and so on, some of them do that as an offering, as a kind of karma yoga, as a kind of puja for the divine. Moving on. He says, some others who observe regulation of food, so some people, they're really strict with food or maybe fasting and so on, make a sacrificial offering of the prana as the vital energy present in food stuff. This is interesting. Into the prana as the vital energy enlivening the body. All these know the true nature of sacrifice and have all evil in them washed away by yajna, or sacrifice, or puja, basically. So what he's saying is, many people, the average individual, eat food. It's a very animalistic way of doing things. I'm hungry, I take, I don't know, my pizza or whatever. You eat your fruit, you chew on it, you enjoy, you swallow, you eat, that's it. You took care of your hunger. But he says that some yogis who are much more knowledgeable in prana, in the concept of the life force, because life force you can get from the air that you breathe, but there are other ways to get life force, also from the food. We know that without food we cannot survive for long, and food doesn't nourish us just by its chemical elements, organic elements, or the material aspect of it. Food carries prana, food carries life force with it, and the body has the wisdom when you eat to take care of the chemical part and eliminate it, but also to absorb from the food the life force that the food gives you. That's one of the reasons why in modern times so many people are sick, because the quality of food has decreased so much that modern food, especially genetically modified and all the other abomination food, junk food that we see in supermarkets today, which is about 80% of what you find in supermarkets these days, maybe more, that is not actually food that has the ability to sustain prana and to give you prana, to give you energy. So you eat, maybe you feel physically kind of okay, temporarily, because you've satisfied a hunger which is more psychological and so on, but your body didn't get much energy from the food. And that's why we find that if this continues for a long period of time, weeks, months, years, a person will start being sick because your general energy levels decrease and decrease. And that's what happens in modern times. We see people sick a lot. There's so many different diseases today, diseases we never even had names for 100 years ago. Now it's becoming an epidemic all over the place. So, and even if I mention epidemic, the situation with this virus today that everybody is so freaked out about and actually shouldn't be, why is it that people are so worried? Because the immune system seems to be so weak for a lot of people. It doesn't have to be if you have a lot of energy. But if you keep eating a lot of low-grade food, which most people, that's the only thing we've got in big cities and so on. You don't live in the countryside in many cases. You don't get access to organic, clean, high-quality, very powerful food. As a result of that, after some years, immune system goes down because there's no energy for it. And then every little flu virus, we are screaming and putting masks on, and we think it's the end of the world. So anyway, I'm digressing here. Let's get back to this. And the idea is that he says some yogis who are aware of this process, they actually do the act of eating also as a puja. I take the food, but the prana which goes into me, it's like a sacrifice. We can say that the fire would be the fire of your digestion. That's the sacrifice, that's the puja that you do. It's like puja, even when you eat, it can be an offering to the divine. It's amazing how they were so intuitive in this way, that they saw everything is an act of offering for God. That is an incredible way to live when you think about it. And that's what Krishna is talking about here. He continues, those who partake of nectar, the sacramental remnants of sacrifice, attain to eternal Brahman. O thou, the best of the Kurus, that's how he calls Arjuna, for one who sacrifices not, this world is lost. Not to speak then of the hereafter. This is very powerful stuff, because what he says is that those who partake of the nectar, in other words, you make the offering when you eat or whatever you do, it's supposed to go to the divine, but you can partake in it. How exactly that works, this is what we teach in our Karma Yoga courses, but the point is the sacrifice goes to the divine, but there's always like a spillover effect where you also enjoy some of these things that the divine allows you to have. And he says, those who do that when they eat, when they do whatever, they always offer to the divine. He says, for them, this world is not lost, because he says, for one who sacrifices not, those who don't sacrifice, the world is lost. Because you're egocentric, because you're egoistic, because you take it for yourself. All the energy is mine. You are a guest in this reality. If you want to call it God, or the divine consciousness has put you here, and you're supposed to sing its praise with every action that you do. But when the ignorant people, and today ignorance is abysmal, and they say it's all for me, 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 this is demonic. And when you take for yourself without offering to the divine first, then you are lost, it is said, because after all, you are acting in full ignorance. That means you don't realize Brahman is taking Brahman and offering to Brahman, and the food is Brahman and everything is Brahman. If you suddenly act in this ignorant thing, no, I am me and this is this, so I take for myself, then you are acting in an unhealthy way, because you don't fit with the reality that you're in. You're acting like a malfunction, and that's why this world will be lost for you. And he even adds here, not to mention the hereafter. In other words, not to mention that even after you pass away, whatever your soul will experience afterwards. Those of you who studied the art of dying with us know exactly what I'm talking about. The bardo and the astral and all the things that you're going to experience afterwards, it says also you will be lost there. So there are so many negative repercussions for behaving in this ignorant way, and not in a karma yogi type of way. And he continues, thus many forms of sacrifice are set forth predominantly or prominently in the Vedas as the paths to Brahman. So you see, the Vedas, for the person who doesn't understand, the academic whatever who reads it, he analyzes it like some old weird primitive rituals from the old days by ignorant people. But when you understand what Krishna tells you here, the Vedas are actually a manuscript. They are a bunch of protocols on how to live a life of sacrifice to the divine, which will guarantee a productive spiritual life and the spiritual outcome after the life finishes. So the Vedas are very powerful from that perspective. And he continues, all of them spring from work done by body, mind, and speech. Knowing this, you will attain liberation. So when you understand the mechanism, suddenly things make a lot more sense to you. Continuing, O scorcher of enemies. So again, O Arjuna, he keeps talking to him in these, beautiful statements describing him like a hero and so on. Sacrifice involving knowledge. This is cool. Listen to it. This is really interesting. He says, because there are many different ways of sacrifice. You can do a puja with fire and herbs and stuff like that, or you can do a puja in other ways, right? But he says, sacrifice involving knowledge is superior to sacrifice with material objects. For, O son of Partha, he keeps calling him these names, all works without exception culminate in knowledge. So basically what Krishna says here is that knowledge is superior to actions on the physical level alone. Because eventually everything becomes knowledge, Krishna says. And that means if you can do a sacrifice that involves sacrificing at the level of the mind, sacrifice of a higher level, that would be more powerful than doing a sacrifice just by doing a fire puja and throwing stuff in the fire and so on. That's a more advanced form. When reverential salutations do you approach them, he says with, sorry, not when, but with reverential salutations do you approach them. The wise, in other words, he says, approach wise men with salutations and reverence. He says, the wise men who have known the truth, in other words, the great yogis, sages, and so on, the enlightened people, he says, serve them and question them repeatedly with due respect until your doubts are clarified. These wise men will impart the knowledge of this divine truth to you. So he gives basically an understanding of how you can access this knowledge. By serving with humbleness those spiritual masters, they will grant you the information, the knowledge you're looking for. They will impart to you that divine knowledge by knowing which you will not again fall into such delusion. In other words, they will give you this knowledge that will make you 100% never fall back to ignorance. For you will then see all beings in their entirety in the self and also in me. This is a beautiful ending. He basically says, because you will, when you get this knowledge, you will see that everything is the self, and he says, and also in me. Why in me? Because Krishna says that he is enlightened, he is an avatar, and he is the self. So basically, you see it in everywhere, you see it in Krishna, it's all the same. Even if you happen to be the worst of sinners, you will surely go across all sin by the raft of divine knowledge. So this is basically the way to eliminate all the negative karma, all the sins of your past, which is an incredible thing to achieve, right? Just as a well-kindled fire reduces a heap of firewood into ashes, so does the fire of divine knowledge reduce all sins into ashes. This is clear. Verily, there is nothing so purifying as knowledge in this world. I hope you realize he's not talking about knowledge that you can accumulate in university or studying books or something like that. He is talking about the knowledge of the self. So, be clear about that. One who is perfect in yoga discovers it in oneself in course of time. So if you are getting better and better in yoga, there will come a time when you will see the self in yourself, and that will be self-realization. That's the end-all, be-all, basically. A man of deep faith, he says, obtains this divine knowledge, being full of zeal, enthusiasm, and devotion for it, and endowed with mastery over the senses. Having obtained that knowledge, he says, he is established in supreme peace very soon. In other words, you reach the absolute. An ignorant man, on the other hand, without any positive faith, who knows only to doubt. It's interesting, isn't it? Because this is the scientific method, isn't it? Always you should doubt. Here, the way he is explaining it here, Krishna, he actually says that it is the ignorant man that does not have positive faith who only knows to doubt. This man, he says, goes to ruin. He is destroyed. To such a doubting soul, there is neither this world nor the world beyond. There is no happiness for him. I think this is speaking for itself. O Arjuna, he continues, works do not bind one who has abandoned them through yoga, consisting in dedication and detachment. So this is basically a summary of it all. He says if you understand dedication, detachment, and consecration as well. You can do any action you want. Those actions will not bind you. In other words, they will not produce karma. Good, bad, no karma. He continues, those whose doubts have been dispelled by divine knowledge and who are poised in the self, he refers to those who succeed. Therefore, cutting asunder the skeptical tendency of the heart by the sword of divine knowledge, betake yourself to yoga, communion through sacrificial action, he refers to here, and arise, he says. And he calls and arise Arjuna, basically giving a fancy name here, but you get the point. And that concludes chapter 4, and we can start chapter 5 here. And he says, O Krishna, Arjuna is asking Krishna here, thou praise in one breath both abandonment of works and communion through their performance. Now tell me with certainty which of them leads to one's good. So he has a question. He says, you praised in one single stroke, so to say. He says, you are praising at the same time both abandoning all work, not doing any work, and communion through work. So which is it? He basically wants to understand. And then the answer comes from Krishna. Both abandonment of works and communion through works lead to liberation. Basically, he says both are valid. And he continues, but of them communion through work excels abandonment of work. In other words, what he says here is that action, work, is superior to no action and no work. O mighty armed one, whoever hates not, the person who does not hate, nor desires, should be known as one established in renunciation. Indeed, one who is above such contraries is easily liberated from bondage. So, pleasure, pain, desire, and whatever the opposite of desire may be, like constraint, he says both are extremes. If you can rise above all of them, you are indeed liberated. It is only, he says, it is only the childish and not the wise that speak of Samkhya, which is the Samkhya philosophy, and he adds here, or knowledge accompanied by abandonment of work. So he says it's the ignorant or the childish that says that only when you become a non-active person completely, that's the right way to go. He says not necessarily. He says yoga, or communion through detached and dedicated work, is actually the same thing. He says that person who sees these two as different, abandoning or working, they are two different things. He says that person who sees it as a different is actually missing the point. A person well established in even one of these attains the end that is the common goal of both. That is, in the means they employ, they look different, but their end or ultimate purpose is identical. To sum up this sentence and to clarify it all, some people choose abstinence or celibacy or whatever, running away from the world. Others choose to act. And he says, if you act with detachment or if you are avoiding the whole thing, both of these systems lead to the same result eventually. He says, that's why don't think of them as different or totally opposite. Of course, he still advocates, if you remember before, he still advocates action to be superior to just leaving it all behind. The state which one attains by Samkhya, or abandonment of everything, that same state is attained by yoga too. He who sees both Samkhya and yoga, or abandoning and acting, as one sees indeed, he says. O mighty armed Arjuna, true abandonment of work, which is this discipline of the Samkhya philosophy, is difficult to practice. Now he gives something practical. For one who is not accomplished in the yoga discipline of detached work. So he says, actually, if you do work with detachment and you become good at being detached, then perhaps you can stop working altogether if that's what you want to do. But to just jump into abstinence and doing nothing, he says that might be too much for the average person. But the sage accomplished in yoga attains to Brahman in no long time. In other words, he says here, through yoga, it's kind of a shortcut. It's much faster to get the results instead of being completely, abstinent from everything. One who is established in selfless and detached action, who is pure, whose mind and senses are under control, and whose self is identified with the self of all, he is never bound, though he is engaged in work. So this is clear. Again, I'm saying detached action, pure mind and senses under control. That's a big one. Most people do not control the senses and definitely don't control the mind. And whose self is identified with the self of all, he says the person who has these qualities will never be bound. Karma will never touch that person. Even if he is working and creating all the time stuff, he will not be touched by any of this, basically. And I'll read one more of these verses and then we'll go to Q&A a little bit. He says, I, the self, do not, he says. Only the senses are occupied with their objects. And in other words, he says it's the senses that give you the illusion of action, and actually the self does not act. This should be the conviction of one who is detached in action and established in the truth that he is Atman. Even while seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, walking, sleeping, breathing, conversing, evacuating, holding, and opening, closing, and closing the eyes. So basically, if you do any action that we all do all the time, every day, he says, you can do all of these things. But if you are solid in the self, none of that will create any karma. So let's stop here. We are kind of in the middle of chapter 5 here. So basically, I have ended here. Chapter 5, verse, Verse 8 and 9 I finished. The next one would be chapter 5, verse 10 that I will discuss in the next session. So that was interesting. I think we learned a few things today. But now I'll go for Q&A. Let's see if there's any questions. I think there's a few. Let me read here the questions. Okay, first question is very profound. It is, how are you, Soma? That's the question. Marcus is asking. So the answer to that deep question is that I'm fine. I am in India. I am under lockdown, but it's okay. There's a reason for it beyond the virus and whatever. Actually, I'm doing something amazing. I am building a clinic here of natural medicine, local medicine, which is extremely advanced and even metaphysical. And the clinic is being built as we speak. It's already halfway through. Soon we will put on our website all the information on this clinic. If anybody wants to donate to this project, you're very welcome. My objective for being here, instead of relaxing somewhere on a beach with no issues, which I could have done, is actually because I was sent here. I was actually called here by a higher power, is all I can say. And while being here, I am supposed to build this clinic because actually I believe what we are discovering here, we're researching ancient texts in Tamil language. We are discovering we have a research and development center in this clinic that we are building at the moment, where we explore some very unique ancient medicines that can help a lot of people. The clinic, first of all, is going to give almost free health care to a lot of poor people in the villages around, which is very important. Many people don't have money so much here to spend on Western medicine. And the medicine that is given here locally is so powerful. I am trying it myself, I'm seeing others, and I've seen cases of people with the problems that in the West they have no solution to, are walking around healthy here. So it's quite incredible, powerful stuff. and we're doing some research here on various ancient medicines, alchemic medicines, and so on, which can actually bring about a lot of results, including acceleration of your spiritual practice, including giving you some very unique rejuvenation, and including, for me, I'm also interested that apparently they have developed some ancient medicines, which we are working on here, that can counteract negative effects from vaccinations, in case you're worried about vaccinations. So I'm doing all this stuff here while I'm under lockdown in India. As I said, I was put here for a reason. So that's how I am. If anybody's interested in all that, check our website. I think in a matter of a few days or a week, all that information, I've made videos of what we do and the building and photos and so on. You can see for yourself. You can become part of this experience if you want. Just let us know. And that's how I am. Let's see what's next. Next question we have here. Gauri is asking, what is the yogic stance on Bretherianism or other forms of sustaining the body by non-physical means? Is this kind of sustainment possible by approaching it as a sacrifice to Brahman, as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita? It is definitely important to do that, because as I said, the whole of life should be a sacrifice to Brahman. So definitely this could be the case, but it's not that by itself that allows Bretherian to do what they do. Bretherianism, those who don't know, it's basically some people, and originally it was yogis, who can get to a level of spiritual power and success that they basically absorb prana directly from the environment, and they don't even need to eat or even drink anything, and they live purely on prana. So that would be great, and indeed some great yogis have achieved that, but it's not enough just to do karma yoga to get to that. You need to do more. Some yogic techniques, some herbal supplements, some things can be there. There is a lot to learn about this. It's a fascinating concept, and actually it connects to some of the work I'm doing here in the clinic, but I can't reveal more at this time. So if you want to know more, you'll have to come here, and I am going to open it up to people who want to join me here, but not just yet. We have things to do, and we have still a ban on travel, so maybe in a few months, keep your eyes open to that. Kotomi is asking, I heard that traditional Tantra has a few different types or branches. If so, what type of Tantra are we studying, and what are the other types of Tantra? There's a few types of Tantra, it's true. One of the most fundamental division in Tantra is the right-hand Tantra and left-hand Tantra. Right hand is basically non-sexual, meditative. Left hand includes everything, including sexuality. And we indeed do the left-hand Tantra. And even in the left-hand Tantra, there are a few branches. They are called by different colors: white Tantra, red Tantra, and black Tantra. We definitely don't do black. That's negative type of things, very demonic. We don't even do much red, only slightly touching on the red stuff when necessary. We mostly do left-hand white Tantra, in case you want to know, which is divine, which is all about enlightenment, spiritual evolution, empowerment, and all the other good stuff. That's what we do. Michael is asking, there are so many people who do not want to see, quote unquote, what's going on. People who blindly trust in their governments, follow the new normality like dogs, but remain happy and worry-free. Are these people closer to God because they do not let worries get close to them? The answer is very simple. No. Knowledge is superior to not having knowledge. And that means when we are today in a situation in this world which is unprecedented, a lot of things for hundreds of years, maybe even thousands of years, are now, in the coming years, maybe in the coming 10 years, are coming to fulfillment. This is a crucial moment in the history of mankind. Most people are not aware of it. They're just thinking the normal mainstream media narrative. That's what they adopt. There's a virus, we're putting masks, soon we'll be vaccinated, everything's going to be fine, and we'll go back to a kind of new normal. Things are not like that at all. What actually goes on? That's a great question. I'm going to talk about it in other situations. I have a small group of people that I share knowledge about these things, but those are more advanced students. I don't share that with beginners. But the reality is that we are in extremely crucial time. I would even say dangerous. So just walking around, not looking, not hearing, don't want to know anything. I just want to, it'll pass, it'll pass. This kind of an attitude can lead to a disaster. You need to know what's going on. You need to know what really is going on behind the scenes. And that's what most people don't know. And more than that, you need to start preparing for what's coming. I'm helping some people to prepare. That's one of the reasons why I was called to come here at this time, because I was told to be here years ago by some sage who told me to come here at this time for this mission. So I'm doing something exactly because of the global situation. And people need to wake up and understand that things are crucial. And you need to act, and you need to act fast. Enough said. Those who want to know more, approach us, ask. Maybe I'll accept you to our groups. We'll see. Moving on. Stella is asking, hi Soma, I know that in the Bhagavad Gita there is a chapter about Bhakti Yoga. Please could you talk about it just a little? With Bhakti Yoga you will see that Krishna at some point will describe what is Bhakti Yoga and how, and it's not exactly the way people think, because most people think Bhakti Yoga is just, taking some songs from the Indian tradition and just saying Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, and whatever, and just getting into this singing thing, bhajans, kirtans. That's what Bhakti Yoga is all about, which is a shame, because actually Bhakti Yoga is a very powerful form of yoga, just like Karma Yoga, like Jnana Yoga, like Raja Yoga, whatever. In the same way, Bhakti Yoga is a powerful form of yoga. Chaitanya is one of the famous gurus in the history, 14th century or something, in Bhakti Yoga tradition. And when you see what levels of success these yogis have reached in Bhakti Yoga, you would be amazed. Chaitanya was able to go into such levels of Bhakti Yoga in his meditation, and even when he was doing bhajans with people, that he would start manifesting paranormal abilities in front of the group, like his body would change forms and so on, and he was reaching into high states of enlightenment. This is a very powerful system, and that system should be studied properly. So yes, we will discuss that at some point, you will see. Tanvi is asking, how do I connect with my guiding angels and how do I identify them so that I receive guidance on a daily basis for my path to self-realization? It's a good question. And indeed, a guardian angel, it's not many, usually you have one. A guardian angel is something that you definitely should learn how to communicate with. This we teach in the Angels Workshop, and maybe I will introduce it in other workshops, I'm not sure. There is a workshop that I'm offering soon. It's coming online, an online workshop that I'm going to offer very soon. I think in a few weeks or in a month or something, it'll be available for you. It's a workshop about the subtle worlds, entities, spirits, and magic. And I will consider perhaps to introduce some information about the guardian angel. I'm not sure about it yet because this is a big workshop. There's already too much information. I don't know if I can fit it all in. It's a wild one because I'm going to go full power with that one. And my intention is to unravel to people the true understanding of entities, spirits, the good or bad, whatever, how to protect, how to interact with the right ones and so on, and what do those entities and spirits, how do they influence your life? Most people don't realize, but they influence. There's actually an economy which keeps happening between us and the subtle worlds. It continuously happens for all of us, but most of us are so blinded that we don't know, that we just saying to ourselves, this happened and that happened is just a coincidence, or life is difficult and what to do, and we don't realize you can do a lot when you understand you're not cut off from the higher levels. There are many parallel environments, dimensions, and so on, and in Tantra and in Yoga, all of this is explained to very minute details, and techniques are given. So this is something I'm planning to do very soon, a workshop. Actually, there's a few I'm presenting. This is one of the workshops, another one coming soon, which is called Astral Healing and Remote Tantra Massage. It's a workshop I've developed especially for the COVID-19 situation where people can touch each other, masks on and whatever, but you can still do healing remotely with people, and there's a whole technology behind it, and it can be very powerful, and I'm going to teach it in the Astral healing and remote Tantra massage workshop coming up as well pretty soon. And also I just want to invite you all to join another workshop which is coming after all of those. So in a couple of months or more, it's going to be a workshop which is one of my favorite. It's a new one that I've developed because it's very important for everyone these days, especially with the problems we're facing in the world today. And this is the workshop called The Art of Prayer. Prayer is an incredibly powerful technology. Most people don't understand it. They don't know how to pray. All they know is just put my hands like this and say, oh God, please do this or do that. And they think that's it, that's prayer. Or going to church and, I don't know, reading from a book. But actually prayer is an incredible technology. And this is something that once you understand how to use, and I'll teach you protocols and so on, you can achieve incredible success in many things, including in your spiritual evolution. So those are some of the things I'm going to go into. I've got another question here from Cynthia. I've alternated between ashram and worldly work. I'm finding the gaslighting has penetrated the work to such a degree. I don't know of any ashrams right now that I could go back to. Have you considered creating one? Yes, I have. And actually the clinic that I'm building here is the first step. And that's why I've decided, because actually I wanted to do it as a private project, honestly. But as I've seen, what's going on in the world is now so critical that I've realized that I cannot hold it just for my private project, but I have to open it to the public. And probably that's what I was meant to do anyway. And that's why first it's going to start as a clinic, but we're considering, because we've opened this to donations, and we already received some very generous donations, but we need a lot more to go into this. So the clinic will be, I mean, I'm going to make this clinic one way or another. The only reason I've opened it to donations is because I feel the time is very short in the world, and if people want to donate, then it'll happen a lot faster. That's the only thing. Otherwise, once this clinic is set up, my plan is to build around it in this area also a kind of ashram, a kind of community where people can come, maybe have some lodging, some accommodation, and be exposed to a lot of teachings, a lot of natural medicine, a lot of stuff, spiritually, meditations, retreats, and all the rest. This is all coming. So yeah, we are working on this, but first step is, in my opinion, the critical thing right now is to get this clinic up and running, because people need this big time with what is coming. And then, of course, if that succeeds, I'll open up to an ashram and building more stuff around. Let's see. Okay, let's see if we have any more questions quickly before I close up. No, I think that was the last one. So I think with this we will conclude for today. That was already a 1-hour session with all the questions and so on. So thank you all. I want to just say again, I wish all of you a safe time wherever you are. Be healthy. I wish you all success on your spiritual path and many blessings. And I'll see you again in the next live event that I will be scheduled to do, whenever that will be. We are working on our schedule. You will be informed very soon. So I want to thank you all very much. Have a good day, evening, or wherever you are. All the best. See you next time.